Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. My name is Suzanne. I'm one of the curators here at the Niagara Falls Museums. Before we get started tonight, I would like to take a moment to acknowledge that the Niagara Region of Ontario is located on the traditional shared territory of the Anishinaabe, the Haudenosaunee, and the Chinootan peoples. The Chinootan people have called these lands home for thousands of years, and more recently, the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee have been sharing the land as one dish, one spoon treaty territory. Thank you for letting me speak that very important bit of information. Welcome. Thank you so much for coming. I was having a little chat with Falynn before we began to just reflect on how long we've been doing this, and we've put it to about 6 seasons now. So a personal thank you to Falynn for taking your time with us 4 times a year to bring us these fantastic guests and these opportunities for sharing and for really important conversation. So thank you very much from me and the rest of the team here at the museum for doing what you do. And on that note, I'm going to pass you over to Falynn and she'll introduce this evening's guest. Enjoy.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Living Out Stories. Like we were just talking about, this is the 6th year I've been doing this, but it is also only my 2nd year doing Living Out Stories. So tonight we have Theo Tams. I'd like to introduce, he is a Canadian singer-songwriter, lives in Toronto, and he won season 6 of Canadian Idol, which was in 2008. And he is still working on music. He's still putting out music. Theo, if you turn your camera on, there we are. Hi, Theo. Welcome, everyone.
Hey, how are you?
I'm well, thank you. So
thank you for having me.
Yeah, well, thank you for saying yes. That was the first step.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
So for any of you that don't know, Theo, like I said, was on Canadian Idol in 2008. That's probably where you started getting a little bit of your fame, and you've been doing music well before then and well after.
Yeah, exactly. So I I grew up in a town near Lethbridge, Alberta, and was kind of, slinging it back there, trying to do my own thing. I was really, really young when I was on Idol. I turned 23 when I was on the show.
Oh, wow.
I've been kind of hustling and grinding ever since in the industry. And it's kind of only really been in the last 2-3 years that I've been back at it full time again, which has been, such a blessing. But yeah, it's been a grind.
So Lethbridge, Alberta is where you started. So Canadian Idol, I'm guessing, brought you out of Alberta more into Toronto. Is that when you moved?
Yeah, exactly. It's funny because when people ask about the show, I always kind of say, as much as I was really thankful of the music opportunities that it kind of brought my way, my kind of motivation for going on Idol was an escape route of sorts. Yeah. I really was kind of just hoping that I would make it far enough to be able to make enough contacts to be able to get out of Southern Alberta, which for me at the time was kind of a really, toxic, negative environment. I had just come out of the closet and, I needed to kind of, I needed just a more liberal, progressive thinking that you often don't get in those really small town conservative environments. So it was a saving grace in many ways, that show.
Did you have a little bit of culture shock when you moved to Toronto at first because of the differences?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it, especially after winning the show, where, I think adjusting to, and I tell everyone, I don't think, I didn't even then consider myself a celebrity or famous or anything. I think I got a small taste maybe of what that life is like. And it was terrifying in so many ways. It was just not for me. And I think I didn't handle the pressure well at all, coming from a small town, then moving to the big city, and kind of having a little bit of that notoriety and that recognizability factor. And it was hard. The first couple of years after that show for sure were challenging.
Well, I mean, if we go back to 2008, and I mean, I remember the early 2000s not being as accepting as they are now. I mean, we're still having our issues now, but we've come further. So, I mean, I don't know if everybody knows, but when you were being interviewed by Ben Mulrooney, I think in like the green room or something, he had mentioned like about the song that you were singing, and I think it was who was the song?
It was Apologize by One Republic.
Yes. And you kind of were talking about it and naturally said it was about a male, a guy. And that just right away, like they kind of cut to commercial and
the
cat was out of the bag.
Exactly. It was this, very pivotal moment. And what's so interesting is that I posted that clip on my TikTok, and I think I captioned it "When you accidentally come out on live TV," and it ended up going viral on TikTok. I think within a couple weeks it had 2 million views. And what was so interesting about that clip was the amount of young kids who are 14, 15, 16 years old on TikTok, commenting, being like, why is it a big deal? Why was it such a big deal? And it made me so happy to hear that, because for them, they are now living in a world where it's not, or at least to the same degree as it was. But I remember when I was on stage and that moment happened, I just remember being like, oh no, because I had the conversation with my parents prior to being on the show, but I was still in university and I hadn't come out to my sisters or extended family or the majority of my friends at that point. Still very much living this kind of double life of, what it's like when you're not fully out. And I just remember literally thinking in that moment, life will never be the same from this moment on. And that was the first live show. So I still had to go through the entire process.
I didn't realize it was the first live.
Yeah,
do you think in a way it was good that it happened in the beginning? Or do you think that I mean, you won.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't think it hurt me. I think the thing that was most challenging was afterwards, them, and when I say they, I think the Canadian press in general, like CP, was asking for a statement about what was said and what wasn't said and what was the intention, and was this meant to be a deliberate move, or was it a slip of the tongue? And, I kept on saying, my publicist at the time who worked for CTV, I said, my response is no response. My comment is no comment. My sexual identity is not going to be used as bait for whether people pick up that phone and vote for me or whether they don't, so. But at the same time, then it was kind of being steered, if he is gay, why isn't he telling us? And is he ashamed? And so it just became this really like diabolical, cluster of emotions being attached to a process that was already so stressful and so much pressure. And then I have this added, kind of element of people kind of being like, define yourself. And so it was challenging for sure, but I'm happy of the way that I handled it, and I'm happy that I still really chose to put music at the forefront. Because I knew every single week that I progressed in that show, I knew that I was getting closer and closer to interviews where I would have to sit down and answer questions. So it gave me time to kind of be able. Yeah.
We were in a time where that wasn't normal. Or normal, I should say.
Right.
Yeah. I remember that. I came out at 23. That was, I definitely understand the double life, because even at 23, even maybe I didn't know exactly who I was, but I couldn't imagine being on a national stage and kind of having to talk about who I am. But I think it was very natural, from my opinion, that you were just talking naturally about who the song was about. It's mostly about the music. It's about the music, right?
And I just remember it being live TV. So I'm just trying to not kind of trip over my words. I don't want to, I don't want to stutter. I don't want to stumble. I just wanted it to be just this fluid kind of stream of consciousness. And that's exactly what it was. And, I'm so glad that I think in many, many ways we've progressed to the point that that wouldn't be such a shock or a faux pas, but it is interesting that at that point, and I'm not sure if it's changed, but at that point, I was the first openly gay winner of the Idol franchise, like worldwide,
The whole thing.
which was shocking to me. You know, and I'm really, and I think it speaks so highly of Canada, you know, that we were the first, and that the public did rally behind me, you know, and blessed me with, you know, a career that I'm still in, which I'm, you know, I feel so fortunate and blessed to have these opportunities still from that show. But yeah, it was an interesting time, to say the least.
It was, and you're right. There wasn't probably a lot of out people in that, because they were worried, how am I going to be perceived? Am I going to be able to make it? But I'm just glad you won that year. And I think it's special that you were able to come out. It was about the music in the end, but you know, you had those people rally around you. I think that's incredible. I want to talk to you a little bit about music. So how did you get started in music?
I mean, I guess music was always kind of my vice. It was always my escape. It was my channel. I mean, I grew up in a really conservative small town called Coaldale, which is about like 20 minutes from Lethbridge, where there was very, very little in the way of art or music or, you know, anything to do outside of, I guess at that point it was, you know, hockey or football. Like, and, you know, I definitely just from a very, very young age, you know, 4 or 5, 6 years old, I just did not fit the norm of what it was expected to be, you know, a boy or a young man in that environment. I always felt very on the fringe. So for me, writing, in terms of, because I started as a writer, and I actually consider myself more a writer necessarily than a singer. Like songwriting is where my heart is at. I am constantly writing. I write daily, whether that's poetry or journaling or songwriting. I'm always writing. So words, I think more so necessarily than music, were kind of my vice and my channel. So, but I remember it was my dad. I was probably 12 or 13 years old, and my dad said to me, you know what, you should try putting some of those poems to music, or ask one of your sisters. Both my sisters were piano players. And he said, you know, ask one of them to put it to music. And my sisters, of course, who are 3 and 5 years older than me, they didn't want their annoying 12-year-old brother bothering them. So I asked my one sister to show me where middle C was on the piano. And I just kind of dove right in from there. And I kind of taught myself chords. And that's kind of where it started for me. And you know, it sounds so cliche. It sounds like this Oprah moment to say that music saved my life, but I know for a fact that it did. I don't know where I would be without the relationship that I have with music and writing.
Wow, that is not cliche to me. That's beautiful. The fact that your dad like listened to your what you were writing and thought that music would be good. I think that's beautiful. I mean, not all fathers and parents are that, you know, involved in what their kids are doing. So you didn't fit in with the hockey playing, snowball throwing boys.
Yeah. No, I mean, I
creative?
Always. Yeah. I mean, I definitely played sports. I'm still a super kind of outdoorsy, athletic kind of guy. Like I love that aspect, but for me, it was, I don't think I ever felt truly seen or necessarily valued unless I was doing music. It felt like something that was just mine. And I think that's what has made it so special for me. And what's really kind of kept me on this path since Idol, where there has been insane highs, career highs, and there's been some really, you know, kind of low points, valleys along the way, but it's just, it is the most sacred relationship to me is the relationship I have with music. So
Oh, that's amazing. Speaking of music, I've been listening to a lot of your music lately. I was looking up to see when your last album came out. Looks like 2018, Call the Doctor was your last full album.
Yeah, it was the last full album. I've been releasing like trilogies, like three
Mhm.
song trilogies ever since the end of 2020. So I think since 2020, I've probably released enough songs to be about 2 albums worth.
Yeah.
Um, Dropping another one this coming Thursday. So a week from today, I'm dropping a trilogy of 3 songs of cover songs. Um, but yeah, so it's really the last since the end of 2020. It's just been every 6 weeks, I think, we're dropping a new single, uh, which is, I think, the most momentum that I've had since the Idol days. So it's kind of nice to be able to, take a little bit of pause and look back and be like, it's so wild to me that it was almost 14 years ago and that I'm still kicking that can. you know it's it is such a wild industry. So um I remember being at the Junos several years ago and talking to Sarah Slean, who I'm such a fan of, and she was talking to Hawksley Workman. So these two people that I
Oh,
grew up listening to, and I remember they were having a conversation about the music industry, about how the music industry is like the ocean, and as an artist, you're just a cork floating in this ocean. And sometimes your cork is right on top and you're riding those big waves, and other times that wave swallows you and it pushes you under, and you just have to trust your talent enough. You have to trust your artistry that you're going to pop up to the surface again. And I remember hearing that must have been probably 2012, 2013, and it was just this mind-bending piece of advice that I was just like, I will never forget that, because I feel like that's the life of an artist, regardless of your medium.
mhm.
You have to trust your talent and your artistry, that it will take you to where you want to go and where you need to go.
Wow. That is a great metaphor, a great way to look at it,
So
to
good, right?
make it make sense to you too, because I mean the low lows are probably really hard. Um,
They can be, yeah.
I wanted to talk a little bit about a pause. You mentioned a pause. Let's talk about the great pause, the lockdowns that we were in during pandemic. What
Ooh.
about the pandemic changed what you were doing with music?
Well, I mean, I can't talk about the pandemic in any sense without talking about, uh, for me, kind of the elephant in the room over the pandemic was getting sober.
Mm,
I kind of have been, or I was, a really, really problematic drinker for years and years and years, uh, which kind of really spiraled after I had won Idol, kind of learning to navigate this new career
mhm,
and the pressures that came with it. And then I guess for me, the problem with alcohol is, it's, especially when you were drinking daily like I was, is that your tolerance just grows so high that what used to kind of give me a nice little buzz was 2 or 3 beers. And by the time I quit, I was drinking, 3, 4 bottles of wine a day, and I wouldn't even be drunk. So my drinking really spiraled at the beginning of the pandemic, from probably those March initial lockdowns
mhm.
until September, October, when I was just I think those 6 months I was, either drunk or drinking. And it was just a mess. And I just kind of had this moment where I realized that, I was just, for so long, and it wasn't just the pandemic. Like I said, it was, over a decade, if not more at that point, of just, throwing so much away because there was so much that I hadn't dealt with. And I was trying to cope with drinking and self-medicating. So once I got sober, and that was December 6th of 2020, and I haven't looked back since. So I'm at like, I guess 26 months and a bit. Um,
Goosebumps.
Thank
Wow.
you. Yeah, it's been wow. What a ride. But I mean, So I can't look back on the pandemic really as this terrible, ugly thing, because for me, it literally changed my life and saved my life in the sense that it forced me to get sober. I think I would still be drinking if it weren't for those lockdowns. And I know that a lot, I've spoken to a lot of family and friends and, strangers that I've met through my TikTok community, that I know that the pandemic really took a toll on so many of us. And it,
Mhm.
in terms of the way that people were drinking and the way that people were, using other drugs recreationally just to cope with this new world that was thrust upon us. But I think for me, once I got sober and once I kind of got a couple months of footing of what that felt like, um, I turned music and writing into back into my new vice. And every single time I wanted to drink, which was so often back then and still now. I mean, I was just saying to someone yesterday, and I'm 26 months sober now, that, whoo, Lord, like I could use a drink today, So every time that happens, I throw myself back into the studio or back behind my piano. And, I'm so just thankful that I have the clarity now. And I think that I'm kind of, I feel like I'm delivering the best music of my career.
Wow.
And it opened the door to kind of opening my own teaching studio. So I have,
Oh,
a
great.
small handful of vocal students now that I'm kind of teaching and mentoring. And that was also something that I fought tooth and nail. I was like, I'm never going to go into teaching. But I love it now. And I have students as young as 8 years old, and I have a student who's 72. And I love being on
Wow.
the side of, yeah, it's amazing. I love being on the side of just being that kind of coach and that mentor, and helping people cultivate their own really personal relationship with music.
I am so glad to hear that the pandemic did that for you. And I actually know of other stories of people that found that clarity and kind of, they were hitting a wall all the time, but given that huge amount of time to just look inward, I'm glad that you were able to use that as a positive thing. And I'm so glad, because your music is just hitting. Every song you're putting out is, to me,
Oh,
it's
thank you.
gold. I love it. I mean, I
Thank
might
you.
be biased, but your voice is so melodic and so smooth. So
Thank
the
you.
healing that you get from writing, I'm sure helps you get through the days, because they're long sometimes.
They are. And I think what's so interesting is, sobriety in general is when my brain, for the most part, as an adult, started to equate any type of extreme emotion, whether that was sadness, frustration, disappointment, anger, even on the flip side, joy, excitement, like euphoria, all these things, I was numbing with alcohol and trying to contain it to this small level that was manageable for me. So I think, even like I said now, I think the last couple of years have just been this kind of roller coaster of like, oh, whoa, like this is what it's like to actually feel anger. This is what it's like to feel disappointment and to sit with it in a way that is, and it's so strange because, and I probably sound like such a hippie, but I have these moments now where I'm like angry and irritable, and then I just take a moment and be like, whoa, like how lucky am I though to be able to experience these emotions with, gratitude of just the full spectrum of human emotions of what it means to be a human and to live a life, as opposed to, being on my, 14th pint sitting in a dark corner of a bar wasting it. So it has it's been a transformative couple years, and yeah, I'm really thankful for the lessons that I've kind of learned in the last 24 months.
I'm really happy to hear that. I know alcohol is something that can really lower your vibration, and by that I mean, like, it really does, it brings you down. So if you're having a lot, it's going to keep you in a space that is manageable, but it's not going to take you anywhere. So I'm so glad that you
No,
were able to
exactly.
find that clarity.
Thank you.
Do you find that, I know you said that your music's a little different, like, do you find that the music is changing lyrically or the way you're singing it?
I think both. I think, when I came back to music with sobriety, I just kind of came with this new attitude of, because before when I was still drinking and I would be presented with a song idea, or if I was in the studio writing, I would constantly tell myself or my producer, my co-writer, I'd be like, oh, this is a great tune, but let's pitch it to this artist. Like, I don't do that. That's not what I do. And, and then all of a sudden I started to tell myself, well, why not? Like, why isn't it what I do? Why can't it be what I do? If I'm, the vessel right now that is coming up with these ideas and writing these ideas, then it is something that is authentic to me. So I think it was kind of just an exercise in saying yes, which I think sometimes as artists we have a really, really hard time doing, because we love to put ourselves in this box so that we can be like, this is who I am and this is what I do, and you should listen to it. And I think I've just found so much joy in the last couple of years of, trying to release songs that I almost want the opposite. I want people to be like, whoa, like, where did this come from?
I love that.
And have them be kind of excited about the fact that it is so different. Like the trilogy that's coming out next week is this, very kind of reminiscent of the stuff that I was doing on Idol, just these big kind of power ballads. But the trilogy that's coming, in the summer is very, very inspired by, like Southern soul of the 70s, and it's got some Prince influence, and it's so different and unexpected from what people know me for. And that's kind of what's really pushing me now, is kind of pushing and stretching my own boundaries of what I thought I could do and what I should do.
Now you're limitless.
I hope so. That's the goal.
I love it. I love it.
That's the goal.
Let's talk about some of your support. Like in your world, who would you say are your biggest supporters that help get you through the days and just the monotony of this life?
Oh my gosh. My fiance, obviously, Sean, we've been together going on 12 years. We're finally getting married. Finally put a ring on it. So we're getting married in July, which I'm really excited for. My dogs, which might sound ridiculous, but I have two Great Danes who are, they are my life force, these two animals, I swear to God. Roosevelt especially. Roosevelt was only a puppy when I was newly sober. So I think the first few months of this dog's life was just me cradling him, bawling my eyes out. So that dog has been my emotional support animal since the moment we brought him home, pretty much. But I mean, I'm also really, really lucky that I've been able to curate, a really wonderful following on TikTok specifically. Yes. I got the hashtag Tams team over on TikTok, which is 150,000 strong at this point, which is incredible. And I owe so much to my fan base over there, because what is so brilliant about that platform is that whenever I decide to go live, there is an audience at my fingertips just waiting. And I feel like as an artist, especially these days, it's just one of the main pivotal ways that the industry has changed, is that we are able to connect now with fans from all over the world so quickly. We just have to choose, how accessible we want to be. And for me, accessibility has been what's rejuvenated my career, because I have let people into this sobriety journey, and I have let people into the ups and downs of my relationship, and I have let people into, you know, me walking the dogs, and I have been so fortunate to be able to form this very symbiotic relationship between a wonderful fan base who not only loves my music, but they have genuinely begun to, you know, just really care about me and root for me. And that anchor of support is such a lovely thing to have when you're in this business where there is sharks swimming everywhere, you know.
I was going to let everyone know, if I didn't already, that's how I rediscovered you, is on TikTok. I love to go on TikTok and check out the lives and see the artists that are just pouring out their hearts, you know, and like you said, there's always an audience, maybe only 3 or 4 people at once, but it's going to go up. And that's how I rediscovered you. And I learned a bit about your sobriety and different things. And it's just been really interesting, and like the way that you're influencing, I mean, 150,000 strong, you're influencing a generation of people. And I just think that that is so beautiful. And you've gone viral, which means that you've got people all over the world now that know who you are, and they get to listen to that beautiful voice and kind of see through you, vicariously live through you and what you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, it's so wild to think that, like I said, it's how the industry has changed so much that music will always be kind of the main focus of whatever I do. But what I love so much about this platform is that I find, you know, these people and these little pockets of fans that are, you know, popping in, you know, at such random moments, you know, depending on what I'm promoting at the time. You know, when I was promoting my cover "Feels Like Home" of Randy Newman, which also went viral. I think it's, you know, at about 1 million views right now, and it just came out a couple months ago. But there was this influx of followers, and it was just all of these young women who are like 23, 24, 25, who are all about to get married, and they all want that song to walk down the aisle to. And I just thought it was so funny that, like, that's the song I sing that's bringing in like this drove of like 10,000 new followers from this one song, you know. And now the cover that I'm releasing next week, I did a cover of "Cowboy Take Me Away" by the Chicks. And and what's so funny is that I even wrestled with whether or not I was going to release that as a cover, because I recorded it literally maybe 3 weeks ago for my own wedding, because I'm going to be using it at my wedding. And my producer was just like, dude, like, you should totally release this. Like, what a cool take on the song. And I was like, all right. So I teased it on TikTok. And sure enough, I think I woke up the next day with 6,000 or 7,000 new followers. And it's like, I swear, every single gay man in Kentucky is now following me. You know, like, it's so funny to me. Just these pockets of fans that are just waiting. And it really is about how do you utilize that platform to find your crew and to find your family. And it's like I said, it's just been a career changing revitalization for me over the last couple of years.
I love that. Music is definitely like an international language as well. Like, you could be singing, like you said, country. You probably just brought yourself 5,000-6,000 country fans that, you know, didn't even know you maybe did music like that. I think that
exactly
you can connect with so many different people depending on what the song and what the genre is.
Exactly.
Can I ask you, what is your favorite genre? Like, I know you have influences of pop and rock and R&B, but country too.
I mean, you will never, I'm so influenced by so many, but you will never be able, you might be able to take me out of the ballad, but you can never take the ballad out of me. You give me a powerhouse vocal ballad and I am done. Just a piano vocal ballad, the sadder the better, and that is where my heart lives, for sure.
That type of music is definitely a vibe, and I have many playlists that are just like sad, like ballads. And I think that's amazing. Let's talk about who are some of your influences.
Oh, wow.
And even going back as a kid, like who did you listen to?
I think I would say probably when I really started to kind of develop what my own voice was going to be, what my own sound was going to be, I was listening to a lot, I would say, of like the Lilith Fair movement. So I was listening to a lot of Sarah McLachlan, a lot of Jan Arden, a lot of the Canadian females, Alanis Morissette, Sarah Slean, Sarah Harmer, who just were so melodic, but they were also very cognizant of telling stories.
Mm-hmm.
And even though you could tell that these songs were written from the most personal experience, they still had this universal relatability.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of where I really learned to craft a lyric in a similar way. At least I hope. I love to write from personal experience, but you know, I really hope that when people are hearing my music that they see themselves and they hear themselves being represented. But I mean, I also love Bob Marley and Tracy Chapman and Benny King, going back to even the crooners, Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, and then new school music. I adore Sam Smith and everything that they stand for. Adele, Ed Sheeran, just like he's such an incredible songwriter. Julia Michaels in the States right now, everything that she's writing is brilliant. And it's interesting though, because I feel like in the last year and a half specifically, I've kind of really pulled back from the amount of music that I personally consume. Because I find sometimes, especially when you're in the studio as often as I am, which is probably about 3-4 times a week, that I find the more music that I'm listening to, the more it's starting to drive and influence what's coming out of me. Mm-hmm. So I've tried to be as silent as possible in my life so that I know that what is coming out of me is authentically mine. Which especially these days, because I feel like every other person who releases a song is getting sued by someone from 20 years ago because it sounds like their song. So I'm like, whoo, you know.
We can blame TikTok for that.
For real. You can blame TikTok for almost everything these days.
But speaking of TikTok, you said you have you've got a big community. I want to go back to this because TikTok is the thing now. I know that most artists that have never even done social media are being told by their PR, TikTok, because that is that's where a lot of the people are on. Like it really is. So did you just get into TikTok with the pandemic, or were you already doing the TikTok thing?
No, so TikTok was definitely a pandemic choice for me. It was a choice.
Good choice.
But I also like resisted it hard because I was just like, at that point, I still think it was like mostly just kids dancing, and it wasn't, and that's when we were all kind of like trying these dances, and I was just like, not a chance. Like, I'm not doing any of that. Like, no way. You know, I'm a grown ass man. I'm not trying any of those dances. So I started doing like these little covers on TikTok, and I think I got to, 4, 5, 6, 7,000 followers, but it kind of plateaued. I wasn't really driving it as hard as I should be. I just didn't really have the interest in it that much. I wasn't, as devoted to it. And then I remember having just a really off day, and I was down in my home studio just playing the piano, and Roosevelt, my oldest Great Dane, who's like my spirit animal, he was in the studio with me, and he came over to me when I was playing on the piano, and because he's huge, he kind of just leaned his head right on my shoulder. And I was just like, immediately, I was just like, if there's anything that's going to go viral on TikTok, it is this moment. So I quickly set up my phone, and I called him back over, and I sang a little bit of Angel by Sarah McLachlan, whilst my huge Great Dane's head is just like right on my shoulder, and he's nuzzling up to me. Oh. And I got maybe like a 45-second clip of this. And So I wrap it up and I take him for a walk. And later on that night, I still hadn't posted it. And I was like, I'm going to go take a shower. So I posted the video. I went to go take a shower and I came out of the shower about 20 minutes later and it had 180,000 views in 20 minutes. And I was like, whoa, like, okay, something's happening here. And then I went to bed. And when I woke up the next morning, I had 60,000 followers overnight. And it was all because of the damn dog. So I owe him a lot. But so that's kind of what was this build of, you know, an instant kind of community and an instant fan base. And ever since then, and I think that video was posted in maybe November of 2020. And ever since then, it's just been go time. And, you know, I'll see these kind of plateaus. You know, I think I was stuck at like 90,000 for a while. And then all of a sudden you drop something that resonates and then you get a big follower dump of another 15K. And so it's a really, what's interesting about it, and you have to be aware of this as the artist, is that like, even though TikTok is driving the industry right now, you are so correct when you say that. Record labels now will say, it's not even, you know, how many followers do you have on Instagram or Twitter or Facebook? It's what's your TikTok following like? How engaged are they? And it's not even what your follower count is, but, you know, how many likes are you getting? How many saves are you getting? How many shares? And it's all driven by this algorithm, which, I mean, that's a whole other hour-long conversation for us to start talking about the algorithm. But TikTok really is, like you said, it is driving the industry right now.
It's a very different, you know, like Madonna. I could just think of a couple artists that are like trying to use it that may not know how to use it. We do have a lot of artists though that are getting into it, and their music is just blowing up. And I think that part of it's really cool.
It is. I mean, artist discovery on TikTok is one of my favorite things. I mean, like, look at someone like Lauren Spencer Smith, who 2-3 years ago, she was relatively unknown, just singing her heart out with that gorgeous voice of hers. And, you know, this year she's nominated for Junos. Like, it's really incredible to see that it is a platform that is a lot of work, and a lot of it's not so nice. There's a lot of unfortunate negativity on TikTok. I mean, I was just blasted maybe 3-4 weeks ago with a huge wave of homophobic rhetoric.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about that. Yeah.
On the platform. From a very simple video, I released a cover of I Want to Hold Your Hand by the Beatles. And I took just a short little 30-second snippet of me showing Sean, my fiance, in his vehicle, just showing him the song and us kind of listening to it. And he kind of nuzzled up on my shoulder a little bit, gave me a little kiss on the cheek. It was nothing that was offensive. It was nothing that was even that in your face. And it was...
I remember the video. Yeah.
Yeah, it went viral for all the wrong reasons. And it was just hate comment after hate comment after, you guys are going to burn in hell, and this is disgusting, and this is what's wrong with the world. And that was super, super disheartening for me. I mean, I have a really thick skin. I think especially being in the music industry, you have to. But that was something that definitely kind of took me back a little bit, because it was all younger kids. These kids were 15, 16, 17 years old. And I was like, guys, come on. I thought that we were further than this, you know?
So that definitely, you know, like there's ups and downs to all types of things. And when you're allowing people, like when you're allowing someone into your space, like you're in your living room when you're doing these lives or you're doing these videos. So it's a little different. These people get to come right into your house. And I know you have admins. So admins help keep the chats clean, and they help keep the people that are, you know, hateful out. So I hope you have some good admins that work with you. And
I do.
I know that you do a lot for people with your voice when you come on TikTok. You did a lot for me.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. It was so great rediscovering you, honestly. And just your music, it has a very healing melodic tone to it. So
Thank you so much.
I want to thank everybody, and I definitely want to thank you, Theo, for coming tonight and for just talking with us and sharing with us. I just want to let everyone know that is watching, we're going to do a little Q&A. So if you have any questions or any thoughts you want to share with Theo, we're going to get into that. We're just going to bring back Susan for a minute, and we will go to the Q&A.
Hi, thanks for that. That was wonderful.
Thanks, Suzanne.
And thoroughly enjoyed that. I do have a couple questions lining up in the Q&A. The first one is, can we see the dog?
Oh my gosh, you totally can. Give
Yes,
me 1 second.
Dog.
Roosevelt.
Or dogs plural,
Oh, no.
perhaps?
Yes, there's 2, I believe.
Okay, sorry, give me 1 second.
You can hear them.
It's like chaos now, but
Great
they
Danes
will.
are like
They
horses.
will come. Hey, come here. Come up here. Come here. Okay, so this is this is the little one. This is Georgia.
Oh, Georgia.
She just turned a year old.
Oh my. Is that
So
Roosevelt?
That was Roosevelt there. Yeah, that's and what's so cute about it is that they are actual brother and sister. They're just from different litters, but they have the same mom and dad. So big brother Roosevelt, come here, bud. Come on. There you go.
You have house horses.
There's the whole family here.
Oh, that's fabulous.
Oh,
There.
I love
There we
it.
go.
Question
I love
number
There we
one,
go.
asked and answered. Question number 2, or thought number 2, is from Anonymous, and they wanted to say that they found your story about healing during the pandemic very relatable and inspiring. And they wanted to ask, do you have any words to share with anyone who is struggling?
Ooh. This one will probably make me emotional. I'm still
already.
Oh my gosh. I'm still very much on my own journey of healing. I think the biggest thing that I could say is you just have to believe. You have to find that tiny spark inside of you that makes you believe that you're worth it. That makes you believe that you are worth changing your life, that you are worth fighting for. For me, as someone who's kind of gone through various kind of moments and issues of trauma and abuse in my childhood, I started to put that validation and that spark in other people's hands, where if they valued me or if they told me I was good enough, that maybe I would be. And I didn't have that belief in myself anymore. And that's what has changed my life, is that I really started to tell myself that, I'm worth it, and that I'm worth the happiness. So I would say just find that yourself.
Thanks. That's lovely. I hope that
Wow.
helps.
Mhm.
We have another question. If you could tour with any artist, who would you choose?
Ooh, that is, oh my gosh. I think I would say my initial thought would be probably Kelly Clarkson, because
Yay.
I adore her. We both come from the Idol, the Idol franchise. I think we would have a lot of fun. I adore the fact that she is, as big as she is, she's still so down to earth, and I would just love to sing with her. So I would say Kelly Clarkson's probably my number one.
I would buy
Great
front
answer.
row tickets to that.
Yeah, that's a great answer.
For sure.
Let's go.
Really great
Let's go.
answer. Have you ever covered any of the Kelly songs?
Yeah, I actually did. So one of my favorite things to do is take a song and just completely reinvent it. And of course, because like I said, you cannot take the ballad out of me, I did a really stripped down, like super emotional version of Since You've Been Gone. So if you can check it out on my TikTok. Go and search it up.
I think I will. All right, we have one more. from another anonymous attendee, and they write, Theo has created a caring family of fans called Tams Team. They come to him when they need some love and support. Thank you. So I think that's a beautiful way to end our round of questions. And from the museum and myself, a big thank you as well for joining us tonight.
Yes, thank you so much, Theo.
It's so lovely. Thanks again.
This was a great experience. Thank you.
And always thanks to you, Falynn. Much, much, much appreciated. We'll see you soon.
To Suzanne and everyone else at the museum, thank you for giving me this platform to provide storytelling. I think it's so important. Thank you, everyone. Good night.
Awesome.
Good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.